Okay. Hello and welcome back to The Bee's Knees. I'm back here again with Ryan.
Hi.
As always. And we're going to do the part 2 of childhood stories because we got enough viewership on the last one, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys liked it.
I went around the final day of musical and was marking people. I like walked up to every single person and I was like, oh, this Ryan Hale guy, what do we really know about him? Well, you can find out more on The Bee's Knees.
And now you can find out more again.
Right now.
For a second time, you can find out even more.
It's true. All the stories that there are.
So let's start out. What's your earliest memory? What's your earliest childhood memory?
That's a good question. Earliest childhood memory, I was like laying in like my crib. And I guess...
Your crib?
Yeah, I was in a crib. I was like a very little child. I don't know. It's kind of blank after this for a while until like I get another memory. But like I was clearly asleep and I was like dreaming of like my actual house that I live in, or I used to live in, and then my my cousin's house up in Pittsburgh, and like it was flashing between them, and I have a complete undoubted belief in my mind that if I opened my eyes at the right time, I would have ended up in a completely different location. I don't know. Probably not true.
You're just magic, baby.
Yeah, I was magic or whatever. So I woke up and I was in my house and I got out of my crib and I walked downstairs and my whole family was eating waffles. And that was my first memory.
That's crazy. My first memory? I actually don't know which one's my first memory. It's one of two things. It's either when my sister Ashley was born. I remember being in the hospital and my grandpa was feeding us these like Gerber baby peas and carrots while she was being born, and we were just there for a long time. And I remember we were leaving the hospital and I was like, can we name her Princess?
That's a good name.
For reals. It is a good name. And it's either that or going to my oldest cousin Leah's birthday party at the Corn Maze. For any of you, or Maze Quest?
Maze Quest,
Maze
yes.
Quest is?
Big Maze Quest fan.
They've got an indoor like play area, and we went there, and I remember it being a lot bigger when I was little. But I was little, so like obviously it's gonna be a lot bigger. But I remember like crawling around there, and there was one like specific slide you can go down to get to this like go-kart area.
Yeah.
I remember abandoning Callie up in that. My other sister Callie, I remember abandoning her up in there and going by myself, and she was up there crying because she was lost.
I'm trying to remember when I was a very little kid. I used to go to my grandma's house a lot, which is now my regular house. We live there now.
Oh shoot.
So this is gonna make me sound a lot dumber than I am. I was playing with the electrical socket.
Oh, good.
I like stuck my finger in it and I got zapped. And in my little child brain, I was like, oh, it's just like the Flash. And so this was my my superhero origin story or whatever. So I fully believed that because I got shocked from an electrical outlet that I had superpowers.
Really fast.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to be really fast. I thought that I had every superhero's superpowers, all of them, and that I could choose between them, whichever one I wanted. And whenever I was playing outside in my yard, I would just like say the name of the superhero, so I'd be like, oh, the Flash, and then I'd run faster. And I fully believed this for years.
Oh my god, this was when I was little. I used to I was convinced that magic was real and that it existed, and I would pretend to have powers, and I was like, one day I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna have superpowers. I'm gonna have the power to control water. I'm gonna have wings. I'm gonna be able to fly. I'm gonna be able to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but I'll be able to do something. And this lasted up until like embarrassingly old.
See, I didn't have anything prepared, so now I'm grasping at straws for what I remember. Because, like, whenever you're trying to think of childhood memories, they kind of escape your grasp. But I do remember, I told the story about how we like crashed that wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, same friend from like across the street. I was on their swing, and I've never broken a bone before.
Right.
But I was on their swing, and I was swinging, as you do, I guess. And I ended up they ended up pushing me, and I flew off a lot higher in my head than I thought I did, because it was probably not that impressive. But I flew off, and like they had maybe like a solid like 10 foot by 10 foot like playground on their like house. I ended up flying out of that onto the grass and landing directly on my back.
Ooh.
And I just laid there for probably like 10 minutes before like my family came to check on me. And I just remember sitting there. I was like, well, I guess this is it. That's one of the things.
God.
Like when I was a kid, like when you get like those random stomach pains. As a kid, I was always
You're
just
like, well, I'm dying now.
It's over, I guess.
I was gonna say, I've only had one time where I actually almost died, and I almost drowned once.
Oh.
Before I really knew how to swim, I was at a pond party, and there were a ton of kids there, and they all got onto this like you know those like raft things that you can keep in the middle of it, and so many of them got on and like all went to one side and they tipped the whole thing over and it went upside down. And me and one of my best friends in the whole world, Natalie, we were in the middle of it. Neither of us could swim at the time, and we had like 2 floaties, and she lost hers, and I was like, shoot, well, I gotta help her. So we tried to share a floaty. And I remember, like, it just didn't work because we're 2, like, 80-pound kids with, like, 1 noodle trying to hold us up. And I remember, like, at one point letting go and just, like, sitting in the water and just being like, man, this is so chill. Like, I'm having a great time right now. Like, I'm just relaxing and vibing in this water. And then eventually I was like, I should go back up. And so I swim back up to the top, and I get up to the surface, and I look around, I'm like, I can't swim. As I'm, like, actively swimming.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't obviously good, but I was like, I can't swim. And I turned to this kid, and I was like, help. And he's like, you're fine. Like, you're swimming right now. And I was like, no, I can't swim. And and I got back to the dock, and my parents were like, because they were upset, and I was not supposed to be swimming without a floaty, but it's okay.
When I was a kid, I did.
Lived.
You did live. You're here. I can confirm.
Here. That was like 6 years ago.
When I was a little kid, I was in Boy Scouts and like Cub Scouts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to this camp, and they had this massive, just huge lake in like the center where like you could do fishing, you could go boating around and kayaking and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so like me and my friend were on this little pedal boat, like
as you do.
Yeah, as you do. And I was so, because they had a pool. You were able to swim in this pool. And we were told, hey, don't swim in the water because, you know, there's snapping turtles and stuff in there.
Yeah, and like fish hooks.
And I was like,
the works.
Yeah, I shouldn't swim in that. But I really want to. And so I was like, okay, I gotta make this seem inconspicuous. I'm gonna look over the side of the boat, and then I'm gonna fall in, and then I'm just gonna get back in. All right. And then I look over the side of the boat. I do the whole routine, and then I realize like, okay, this is kind of boring. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, there's snapping turtles in here. Hey, get me out now. And I'm trying to like lift myself over, and I can't. Yeah. The pedal boat's like shaking around.
Those things are like crazy hard to get back on. It's like, yeah.
And I don't want to capsize it because my friend's on there, and I'm gonna get like, I don't know, beat up by the camp officials or something as like a kid. That's what I thought. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I basically like tell my friend, pull me up, and like he can't. So I just throw my legs over the front of the boat, and I'm just like, pull me up. And he drags me over the front of the boat, like the little hood where like the paddle is, and just pulls me up back into it. And I'm like soaked and terrified. And I'm like, oh my God, why did I do that? And I'm a good swimmer. Like I could have just swam to shore, but I was fully convinced a snapping turtle was going to come and bite me.
Well, even if you are a good swimmer, swimming in like ponds and lakes is hard.
Yeah, and it's also
I don't know why
gross.
It's so exhausting. It is a little, but the old church I used to go to would host these like pond parties, like basically once a month during the summer. And there's this like pond that was there, and we would go, and it was massive. This thing was freaking huge, and you were allowed to swim in it. And we would do this thing where you'd like try and swim out to like the fountain that was in the middle of it and swim back. It was probably like 30 feet out. It was pretty far, but like we would go and like we'd try and swim out and come back. And I remember doing it once, and I was so exhausted. I was like, I can't drown here. That'd be so embarrassing.
Have you ever gone to Lake Mount Gretna?
No, I've been to Lake Tobias though with
the animals.
Yes, it was so fun. I had a great time there.
I went there once, and I have a photo of me holding like a giant animal horn. But Lake Mount Gretna is this lake that's somewhere in Pennsylvania. I don't know.
Mystery.
It's a mystery. I'm gatekeeping it. You guys don't get to know. But I honestly have no clue where it is. But I do remember that I went there a lot as a kid, and they had this like high dive that was just like maybe 4 metal poles out in the middle of this lake, shooting like maybe 20 feet up or more, like way too high for a bunch of like kids to get on. And I would just get on it continuously again and again. And like at this point, I don't know how to dive or anything. And I also don't want to dive headfirst into this like lake. Who knows how deep this thing is. So I would climb up to it, and like it's that like feeling like, or like in like cartoons and movies when like you look down, it's like the whoa, and everything gets way lower than you think it is, and you're just staring down. And so I like sort of huddle up on top of that, and I'm like, okay. And I only knew how to pencil dive, so I would like jump off of it, and I think I was like invincible afterwards.
That's crazy. I never did anything like that. I was always too scared, but at one point for one of my friend's birthday parties, I went to a Wisehaven swimming pool. Yeah. And they've got those 2 like high dives, and like I remember jumping off that once, and I was like, it's so high up. It's not. Yeah. It's like maybe 10 feet, 15 feet. It's not. It's nothing crazy. I remember like being like convinced to do, like they like drug me up there, convinced me to do it, and then like I did it, and I was like, oh.
I'm gonna bring up Great Wolf Lodge in a second, but before I get that,
shoot,
because I realized I need to tap into the Great Wolf Lodge memories. But before I do that, the beach. I went to the beach one time. I used to go to the beach with my family a lot. But this one specific memory I have was I was boogie boarding, and there was this massive wave, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm about to catch some serious waves. I thought I was like sick, but like I get on the wave and I'm riding it and I keep going, and then all of a sudden I'm getting really close to shore, and then my boogie board like goes like nose first into the sand and flings me off of it, and I smash my nose into the sand, and I ended up like getting a crazy bloody nose.
That's horrifying.
And I had to run back to my family, and to make up for it, they got me a milkshake, and I felt so much better. But yeah.
I do go to the beach sometimes, but usually my family's a lot more of a mountains.
The mountains.
Yeah. But when I do go to the beach, I go shelling because I hate swimming at the beach. Yeah. I'm so scared of the things in the water. I can't do it.
Recently, literally, I say recently as if it wasn't this summer, or like I guess last summer by this point. But last summer, I went down to North Carolina with my friend.
Yes.
My friend Will, who nobody knows because he goes to York Catholic, but shout out Will if he ever watches this. I went to the beach with him, and I was just like, it was the last day, or one of the last few days. It definitely wasn't the last day, but I was like sort of by myself because everybody else was like hanging out on the shore, and I had already, like reapplied sunscreen, everything. And for some reason, the like waves were like really high, which made the water level really low. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna jump over one of these waves. Keep in mind, I'm like literally almost 17 at this point, because the end of the trip was my 17th birthday. That was the last day we were there. So I had like.
How tall are you?
I'm like 5'8", 5'9". So these waves are getting up to my chest. So
that's crazy.
They're not low. They're like high, and I have the mind of me right now. And I was like, okay, I'll just jump over one of these waves, and I jump over it. It catches my feet and sends me flinging forward. And I mentioned the water level was low between the waves, so I slammed down and shred my hip across like a bunch of shells, and I had to get like this like area band-aid over like my hip. It was awful, but like I skinned my entire hip. But Great Wolf Lodge.
Oh my god. I've been to Great Wolf Lodge I think twice in my entire life. Maybe only once. I can't remember. The food there is so good. That's like the one standout thing I remember.
They have like their buffet, yeah.
Yeah. So banger. What's your story before I do my little story?
This is probably one of the most notable stories of my entire childhood.
Oh, wow.
Me and my family used to go to Great Wolf Lodge a lot because you know those Spartan races things. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah.
We used to do the one up there by the Poconos, and we would go to Great Wolf Lodge after, spend like a week there, and then head home.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really little at this point. I had no clue of anything. It was like the last day, I think. And what happened was my family was in the wave pool.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little idiot, a little baby, and I had no clue that people went into wave pools for enjoyment. So I was like, oh my God, those poor people. And my parents were in there.
That's me with the roller coasters.
Yes, it was you with the roller coaster. And I was like, my parents are in there. They're
crazy.
In danger.
I love wave pools. That's crazy.
I was like, don't worry, I'll save you. And in my mind, I was like, okay, here's the game plan.
Right.
I'm going to drink all the water in the pool, and then all the water will be drained and they'll be safe. So I start drinking huge gulps of this water over and over again. This is a public pool.
That water is disgusting.
So we go home, and I had to spend like the rest of the week laying by my parents' bed with like a little bucket because I was so sick that I during the night I would wake up and just throw up continuously because you shouldn't drink that much water.
You shouldn't, let alone
the water at Great Wolf Lodge. Yeah.
Great Wolf Lodge. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was bad.
That's
really
crazy.
bad.
I just remember my most notable thing. I think it was I might have gone to Great Wolf Lodge twice, but if it was the second time I went to Great Wolf Lodge, we had my brother, and he was like maybe 5, and none of us wanted to watch him. Like it's a family of 6, right?
Yeah.
But none of us wanted to like keep an eye on him because the only thing he wanted to do was go to the play park.
Yeah.
And like my parents were not allowed to go in there. They just had to sit there and watch him. And this thing is like, I don't know if you've ever been to, you obviously have been, but like for the listeners, if you've never been to Great Wolf Lodge, in the middle of most Great Wolf Lodges, there's like the whole kiddie section, which is this massive play place with a bunch of different like water elements. And it's really hard to keep track of kids if you're just like watching them from the outside. And I think at one point, one of my parents like lost track of my brother, and I was sitting in the wave pool. I was having a good time, and they came up to me. There's like, "Where's Terry?" And I was like, What? What do you mean, where's Terry?" You're like, "Where is he?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And so from like that point on, for the next like 20 minutes, my whole entire family was just on high alert trying to look for my brother. He was literally just in the play place the whole time.
Makes sense.
We just like couldn't see him. I remember like scouring that place because I was little enough at the time that I was able to like get up in there.
Yeah.
I remember just like running through there and be like, "Terry, where are you?" That was fun. He wasn't actually lost. He was perfectly safe. He was fine.
That reminds me of a story, but before I get to that story, I have to give another story of Great Wolf Lodge. I was at Great Wolf Lodge. They have for my sisters, they had the Scoops Boutique, which was like the Bippity Boppity Boutique, basically, but for them, and it was just like wolves and, I don't know, ice cream themed, I don't know. But for me and my brother, they had this wizard game that was like a scavenger hunt wizard game.
I wanted to do that so bad.
You get like a wand. I got obsessed with this wand. It was like red, and I was like, oh, red. And I got like a hat. I remember specifically when my stepmom was buying me the hat, she said like this exact phrase. She was like, if there could be like a hat that could, I don't know, accompany him on his wizarding journeys. And I was like, you don't know I'm not a real wizard, right? This is just a game. I was at that point where I was like, I know, but do you know? And then
that's so funny.
I got everything done, and I got to the dragon, which is the final thing, and I couldn't beat it. I just couldn't. So my stepmom almost offered to pay a child to beat the dragon for me, just a random kid in the middle of Great Wolf Lodge to beat the dragon because I was not good at games by this point. But then that lost thing that you're talking about, your brother getting lost, reminds me of I think I was going to see like Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel.
Yes.
But I went to go see it with like my siblings and my aunt, and we like went to, I don't even know what movie theater it was at this point, because like when I think about it, I think it was in like a mall because it was huge. So we walked in, and immediately like we went, my whole siblings were around like this claw machine, like like gumball dispenser, whatever. And I was like, that's cool. And then I wandered off. I just walked. I was like, this is like boring. I don't want to be here. So I wandered off and I walked into one of the theaters, and it had the trailer for the live action Alice in Wonderland, and the Mad Hatter scared me to no end. I was terrified. It was Johnny Depp, and he said something and he tipped his hat, and I like ran out crying in terror. But my family was already gone. They went to Subway. They didn't know where I was, but they went to Subway, and I ended up sitting like with my head in my hands, like crying because I was like, one, I'm lost. Two, I just saw the scariest thing ever. It's Johnny Depp. and like I'm in this mall all alone, and my family's gone, and I'm like, they could be 1,000 billion miles away from here. So I'm sitting down and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then my aunt comes and gets me, and she takes me to Subway, and I get like a meatball sub, and everything's better.
As it is when you get Subway.
Yeah, as it is when you get Subway as a child. This is totally unrelated tangent. Sam's Club is a place.
Oh shoot, I was a Costco girly.
I was a Sam's Club boy. Girly. Shout out to Sam and his club. But my dad had a Sam's Club membership. And,
shoot.
Jaymi's here. Jaymi.
But, same deal as last time.
Hello.
Yay.
Hi.
So me and my dad used to go to Sam's Club when I was a kid because he couldn't leave me home alone. And
right.
I was already out of school. So he would take me to Sam's Club, and I thought this was the coolest thing. I got to go around with my dad.
Have, like, the free samples.
They do have the free samples.
Oh.
I don't think I've ever been to Sam's Club before.
It's you need a membership. It's very exclusive.
Is it like Costco?
It is Costco, but it's better. It's better because it's wholesale everything. I don't know if Costco's like that.
I was just talking about how I'm a Costco girly.
Okay, well, I went through there, and every so often, my dad or like my stepmom's mom would like take us to Sam's Club. It was usually every Wednesday, and we would get slushies and churros.
Right.
And you're never gonna believe what we called this.
Churro slushy?
Slushy Churro Wednesday. It was just like a thing we did for a long time.
Okay. Have you ever been? This is we're talking about stores. Have you ever been like lost in a store?
No,
we just talked about that.
Really?
I was talking about how I got lost in a movie theater.
I got lost.
So Johnny Depp has the Mad Hatter, and I cried.
I got lost one time inside of some super. I think it was Food Lion. A shout out to all my my northeastern Baltimoreans and Virginians. Food Lion.
We have a Food Lion here.
Do you have a Food Lion?
Yes, we do. It's right by First Post, and I think like Oyako-san Sushi.
What?
Well, shout out to my northeasterners because I know it's local. I got lost in a Food Lion one time.
Dang.
And I remember I was like crying, and then I walked outside, and across was this place called Green Turtle, which is like off-brand Red Lobster. It is the exact same.
Yeah.
And so I went over and I walked to the Green Turtle. My dad was in the Green Turtle. He just forgot. It's also like, to be fair, this is my stepdad. This is like his first time ever taking care of a child.
Yeah.
So like a little excusable, but he was sat down at Green Turtle by himself.
Oh my god! Did you just like intuitively know? Like I was like, I gotta go to Green Turtle right now.
And he was like, he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. He forgot. I still hold it over to them to this day. Because
That's so.
So you go to Green Turtle? It's Green Turtle. They sell bad biscuits.
That reminds me. Another time that I got lost was at the beach, which is probably infinitely worse.
Terrifying.
So, for people that don't know, for people that don't know where my family went to the beach, because that's common knowledge, I used to go to Wildwood, and for people that don't know, that is a place in New Jersey. It has like a very large boardwalk, and one of the main things on the boardwalk is you can rent bikes and you can go biking around the boardwalk. I don't know if every boardwalk's like that, usually because it has walk in the name. I think
well, no, I've been to a boardwalk like once ever.
But I would end up. My whole family would end up biking because fun activity and it's healthy and whatever. But we would go from one end all the way back. So we finally reached the end, and we started going back. And my family was like, "Oh, no, we're gonna stop at this store," and I was like, I was too focused. I was pedaling. I was gonna make it before everybody else. And then I just kept going. And then I realized, oh, my family's not here. And I turned around, and I was crying. But then little me I had this intuition that, since a boardwalk is a line, if I just keep walking, eventually I'll find them. Yeah.
You were there for 3 hours.
I was there for 3 hours. They were gone.
Yes.
But no, I walked and I found them, and they were like, "We said we were going to stop here. Why did you stop here?" Alternate point about that boardwalk, had this like comic store, and I'd never been to a comic store before, so I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And they had a Ash Ketchum hat, and I bought it, and it made my head itch. Maybe it had lice. We'll never know. But I was like, you can't see from at home, but I'm freaking out and itching my head because that's what I did. Like I thought I was dying. I don't know.
This reminds me. I don't know because you mentioned biking. So I feel like I mentioned this. I can't ride a bike. Never learned how to ride a bike.
What?
Never learned how to ride a bike. I just never owned one, but I did own a skateboard.
Yeah.
I feel like I have mentioned this. Maybe to I think just you. I might have just mentioned this story to you before, Ryan.
Maybe.
I used to have a skateboard, and the way that my neighborhood worked was it was a very new neighborhood, and so the sidewalks were just like they weren't there. It existed, but it was just rock.
Adding on to that for context, I lived the neighborhood up from Jaymi, and I actually watched the entire neighborhood get built because I used to live there. From when I was a kid, I watched that neighborhood get built. So it was built in our lifetimes, and
this is a different neighborhood. But I have a different story about that neighborhood and the rocks there. I'll talk about that one after. This is the neighborhood I grew up when I lived in Harrisburg.
Oh, of course.
It was also a very new neighborhood. And so because I couldn't bike, I had a skateboard, like a little kiddie skateboard.
Yeah.
And one time I was like, I'm going to ride my skateboard down this entire hill, which I've never done before. I only ran down like 3 little things and I'd stop because the road was messed up. So I was like, okay, I'm going to ride down this entire hill on my skateboard. The hill had the least steep incline I've ever seen in my life. It was barely a hill. I was like, I'm going to do this because I am a god. And so I did it, and I got down like one little like patch of the sidewalk, and I started freaking out. I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to run into your team. I'm going to die. And I like tried to bail off the skateboard but the issue with that was that I could either bail into a tree or into like a driveway. So regardless, I was going to be hurt. I decided to bail forward into more sidewalk. And so I jumped, landed like on my side, so like I wasn't that hurt.
Yeah.
But then because of the fact that I was bailing into the same direction as my skateboard, I like curled up, and then I could feel like right in my butt, like my skateboard is like hit, and I was like, oh! And I was stuck on. I was like 7 years old. I was stuck on the ground in pain for I want to say genuinely like 15 minutes. Like I couldn't get up. And then it's a hobble back home, and my mom, why I was crying. And she threw away my skateboard that same day.
Oh my god!
And the other story with my neighborhood, the neighborhood that I live in now, this neighborhood, and the rocks, because the neighborhood was very new, was one time. I have this. Me and Ryan had this mutual friend, Zion. He lives at the street from me. Great guy. Love the guy. I was at his house, and we were playing some game on his PlayStation. I remember I brought my controller over to his house because he needed more controllers. And then I went back home, and I was like, wait a minute. I just realized I left my controller at Zion's house. So I said, Zion, I left your controller at your house. And he's like, go run and get it. So I start running, and I run into the sidewalk that isn't finished. Keep in mind, I do this all the time. I've lived here for like 3 months now. I run, but then my shoelace. I chronically have untied shoelaces.
Yeah.
People that know me, my shoelaces they're
tied right now.
But my shoelaces are always untied, and they've always been like that my entire life. I tripped and fell on my shoelaces. This is, I think, the last time I ever tripped and fallen on my shoelaces. Tripped and fell on my shoelaces, and knee first, like dug into the rocks. And I was like, that hurt, but not that much. And then I looked down on my knee, and it was white. It tore away all the skin on my knee. I do have a minimal scar, and I'm gonna for those at home pulling up my leg to see it right there.
Oh yeah.
I have a little scar from there, and I walk with a limp now.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I thought I didn't do that much damage. Definitely did, because my knees have never recovered. I will have arthritis by the time I'm like maybe 20.
I'm trying to think stories about my neighborhood that was up the street from you. We had a playground at my house.
Ooh, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your house, you're rich.
Yes, I lived a very, very nice life. But we had a bunch of like wasps get into like the little upper thing. Solution:
Yeah.
older sibling spraying it with a water gun, and then
That's not how that works.
and then
Would you do that?
they would just go, and then we would all run and start screaming in terror.
That's not how that works.
Which reminds me of the time I was on the York Catholic cross country team, and there was another wasp's nest. Wasn't invading on our area at all, but they decided to throw a rock at it. And I heard them because I was behind. Like, it was a long day. I was kind of tired. I heard them screaming from like half a mile away, going ah! And running. And I caught up and I was like, "What happened?" And they're like, "Oh, we threw a rock at a wasp's nest."
That's
Why would you do that?
Oh my god, this reminds me. So I used to. Okay, I'm gonna share this quick because I don't know if you have that much time left. I used to have a really bad ant problem in the house I live in currently. Not anymore. We fixed the ant problem. But the solution, the solution for my older brother, who at the time was like 17, my age now. At the time, what he would do was he would grab bug spray.
Yeah.
He'd grab we had this foam bug spray, so he'd grab the bug spray and he'd just spray it on the individual wasps, not the nest. Oh, sorry, on the ants, not like where the ants were coming from or anything. Like he just like find an ant on the ground, just spray it and like cover it. But it was also only in his room. He then slept in that room. Keep in mind, his room is in the basement with no ventilation.
Yeah.
In that room, woke up the next day with the worst migraine and the worst stomach sickness he had ever felt because he had ingested so many fumes from bug spray that he had ingested, and it was so dangerous.
There's Ethan. Hi, Ethan.
That's time.
Yeah, that is time.
Well,
I have more stories. See, when I start this up, I'm like, I don't know what to say, and then as soon as we get rolling, it's like, oh, and this. But
maybe we'll make another one eventually. No promises for now, but
we could do a camping stories
guys-
video. I have a lot of camping stories.
That one will be a part of Never Went Camping.
whoa, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
First episode without me.
Same with the roller coaster one.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Won't be on that one either.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye.